I want to welcome you to this presentation, Introduction to Presentation Design, Facilitating Online Learning Experiences, to assist you in facilitating the best learning experiences for the learner. I'm going to answer the question, what training methods create the best learning experiences? First, we will need to consider identifying the learning objective. For example, knowledge may be a learning objective. An efficient way to accomplish this goal is through the use of lecture. There are also other ways that we can do this through some of the technologies that are available, especially for the online learning environment. Videos or simulations are some structured experiences we can have. Behavior modeling or even doing some presentations as well as writing tasks can be effective in sharing the learning objective. You should also think about other learning objectives such as learning skills, which could be mental or physical. So, once again, there are several ways to do that besides lecture. For example, hands on through simulations or demonstrations, that sort of thing. We will be looking at that. We will also be discussing some of the methods that we can use to meet different objectives. For this presentation, we are going to focus primarily on some of the best ways to present technical information. In the next slide, I want you to match up the teaching methods based on the objectives to be achieved. For example, when considering lectures, which teaching method would go best with lectures? Which one would go best with simulations? And which one would go best with discussions? So I will share that with you on the next slide, and then we will move into how to facilitate the best learning experiences for technical education. What are the most effective training techniques for technical topics? First, determine what the purpose is for teaching the technical information. Technical information is taught for two purposes. One of the purposes in which technical information is taught is for recall. The second purpose is to apply the information. Technical information can be grouped into five different types: facts, concepts, work processes, work procedures, and guidelines. The first one we will look at in a little more depth is facts, which involves individual statements. The best technique or method for this type of technical information is the lecture. In fact, you can give out a bunch of information and people can jot it down, and they can even record it and go back to it to make sure that they have the accurate data. Lecture is a very efficient way to get information out of a lot of people. A typical lecture consists of a lot of people in a big room, a couple hundred, or sometimes even thousands, where the facilitator disseminates a lot of information in a streamlined, quick, and effective manner. The second type of information is concepts. These are stated as classification, category, or as a general idea. The best technique or method for this type of technical information is exercises. This is actually a little more involved and takes a little more time and planning because there are a lot of things to consider for the participants, whereas lecture does not require a lot of that. The forum, the room, all of your setup, whether that is a podium, microphone, or stage, is needed in a lecture. However, for an exercise, it will take a lot more pre planning, involvement, and consideration for your participants when using the method of exercise and simulations for your trainees. The third type of information is work processes. This focuses on how things work, the things that go into making it turn over. Processes will get into how it functions and the steps that go into that. This could be for several different environments, whether it is machinery or even with administrative processes and teaching your students, as well as in how you will start them at one place and move them through a curricular in seeing how the things work. For example, the best technique or method for this type of technical information is demonstration. So you can have several lesson plans if you're doing something from that standpoint of showing someone else how to present your material, having them shadow you as well and model for them how to do something. And if you are working with machinery, you could actually use the machine before you turn it over to someone else, such as an apprenticeship, which is an effective method for doing this type of training process. So you actually shadow, go alongside someone you are working with, whether it's a plumber, craftsman, or engineer, or someone like that, that you will actually go through and be trained on something via demonstration. In education, this works very well with online learning, shadowing someone else who is doing online training or online teaching and allow them to illustrate to you how to do things in an effective manner and the different processes that are involved in making things work effectively is an example of the demonstration technique. The fourth type of technical information is work procedures, which focuses on what steps are taken. The best type of technique or method for this technical information is simulation. This one is pretty close to the last one we talked about, work processes, but work procedures would actually be going through the simulation by taking the steps you need to follow. It's more hands on rather than going through the big picture. So in work processes, you would maybe see things from a 10,000 feet view, whereas simulation would be on the ground going through and working through each of the different steps. So you could do some of these things in an online environment. Simulations and simulator games are very popular as you work through the different processes. If you are teaching online, sometimes you may even go through this for a faculty orientation and actually run through the simulation of an online course. The fifth and final type of information we will look at in this discussion is guidelines. And these are policies, common practices, or principles that guide the use of processes and procedures or the application of facts or concepts. The best technique or method for this type of technical information is case studies. These are really effective because you can go through and see different types of scenarios and the outcome of what would happen as a result. Case studies are really effective and safe because you can see the outcome of the decision you make as you follow different policies. Case studies, if used properly, can be very effective in communicating and getting across information. As we wrap up this discussion on the different types of technical information, facts, concepts, work processes, work procedures, and guidelines, here are a few things to consider as you present your discussions and presentations to your audience. You want to consider their learning preference. For example, some may learn better through simulations, while others may learn better through lecture. Also, the preference may depend on the culture that you are in or the generation that you are talking to. So there are a lot of factors for you to consider along with the type of information you are preparing for your audience.